Okay, on to section number 10. Now, it's a relatively small section, only two real big questions, and it's all about how things will be put in and how the information will come out, and it's the requirements of that you would need for that to happen. So let's look at the first question. You need to identify and then explain the different input requirements that will need to be met by your new user interface. So think about how and what the user will use to put the information into the interface in the first place. How will they interact with it? Now, this question will be the answer for this question will be different depending on the scenario that you're in. In this scenario, they've told you it's a touchscreen device. It's going to be maybe like some kind of tablet or something like a large screen that is touch sensitive. But that's not always the case. You might be asking the real thing that you need to make a website or need to make a phone app. So we can't just assume there's always going to be the same thing. So just keep the question in mind first, and then you can adapt your answer according to the scenario that you're in. So in this situation, yes, it's a touchscreen device. So it needs to be simple, and needs to be made up of buttons, and needs to be clear and not too cluttered. It's that kind of stuff itself. It also means that it needs to be well laid out, organized, and then we go on to the output requirements. So input requirements, think about it. I'm trying to explain it in a way so it's simple. So to put simply, if it was a touchscreen device like a phone, yeah, it's the best example I can give you right now. A phone. Most of the things that we use on a phone, especially when it comes to apps, they're buttons or images, aren't they? When you think about it, when you open up your camera app, you see an icon that resembles a camera. You click that button, yeah, and then it opens up. If you look for your settings, the list of things that come up, they're words, but they are actually interactive buttons. You click on it and then it goes onto that setting or that part of the settings. So in essence, what we're talking about, it being a touchscreen device and touchscreen software, a lot of the things that you're going to be doing is going to be buttons. But then you have to ask yourself as well, if someone's going to sign in and say, look, I'm coming in for an appointment, or I'm booking an appointment, or cancelling an appointment, it means it's not enough to say it's all going to be buttons, because it's not. There'll be elements where they have to type in information like their name, their address, their telephone numbers, things like that, which means there's going to have to be some kind of keyboard. So you're going to have a physical one or an on-screen one. You decide. We said we're going to have some elements of maps in there, which means there needs to be a means of typing in or maybe scrolling. So that means you will have to use some elements of pinching and zooming to pinch in or pinch out to zoom in or zoom out of the map. Maybe you'll allow some buttons. Typically speaking, in Google you have like a plus sign and a minus sign somewhere that will allow you to zoom in and out of a map. So it's small things like that. So you have to think about what kind of buttons, what kind of icons, what kind of other features and tools that you're going to have in there that's going to make the interaction with the software, your user interface, that much easier and more intuitive. Going on to number 2, very similar, but this time we're talking about the output. So what's going to come out of your user interface? So think about what the users will see, hear, and feel coming out from the interface. So these will be things like how they know they've clicked on something. So most buttons, they go in. Like if I move my cursor over here, you'll see there's a sort of a shadowy texture or shape that's come behind this B for bold. And not only that, this pop-up message popped out. In fact, it's like a speech bubble that tells you this is bold, and it tells me very smart, very cleverly, it's telling me the shortcut for it, the keyboard shortcut, which is Control and B. If I move across, yes, you can say, but yes, sir, you can see the cursor. Yes, you can see the cursor, of course you can. But it's still go that one step further by having this element, this feature here that tells you that, look, I am actually on top of that. So when you use your finger to do that, go on buttons, it does the same thing. Yeah, so it's those things here. So you're going to have a rollover. That's what it's basically known as. You're going to have any rollovers in there. You're going to have an element of changing the backgrounds and text. And you might say, why would you want to do that? Well, think about it. Some people will need to have things larger on the screen for them to read it properly. Some people may want to change the colours because they might be dyslexic or whatever. There might be other things. What about people who can't see properly? Is there a speaker somewhere that you can click on and it'll read out the instructions? What? And then on top of that, you have to say, okay, will you have that feature from the beginning, or will that be introduced as you go through the different pages? So what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to show you some examples, because it might be easier to answer these questions once you understand what is it that you're basically aiming for. I know this is going to sort of touch on section number 3 a little bit, but I'm going to just go to Google here and show you what I mean. And these are some examples of patient check-in systems and screens, real life ones. And you can see, I like this one here as an example. You can see before even starting, it gives you an option to choose your language first. That's perfect. And to go one step further, it would be nice if you, let's just say, you push all this up a little bit and have another one for hearing impaired people or visually impaired people, where you actually say, if you click on this, the system changes also different to a completely different design for people who can't hear, because there's no point having a screen like this, for example, for someone who can't see properly, because how are they going to do, they can't see it, or something like this, yes, the person's nice and large, but someone who can't see properly, it's not simple, is it? So you got to think about those kind of elements. So having the front screen designed in such a way that actually takes you down 2 different paths. So someone who can see properly will click on that. For those who might need to change the design, the color scheme, the font sizes, may want to click on something else, and it takes them down a different path instead. And there are so many different designs. What I would suggest is, before even looking at section number 10 and onwards, it might be worth going and do some research online to see what is out there. Just to give you an idea, if you click here, you can see there are other examples. Some are, designed like this, where it's 1, 2, 3, 4 sections, and you can say, top left, top right, or bottom left or bottom right. Some are like this. Now, I'd say that's too confusing. There's far too many options. So there are some good examples, there's some really bad examples. That's a nice one, nice and simple, where they're asking for your date of birth, and it's a nice large input pad there, with the sections telling them, look, it's underlined underneath the DD, which is the day. Once I type it in, it's safe to say and assume that that's going to move over to the MM, which is a month, and the year is there with the 4 Ys, and it even gives you an example. So it's thinking ahead, showing examples, showing you the design, and having the questions at the top. And you can see at the top it says English. So it might be worth looking at, getting some research done, having a look at some of these examples, and give you some ideas. But when you're ready, you need to answer those questions and say, okay, what will they hear? What will they see? And the field one's a little hard. You might say, and remember, you're not making the real thing. So you can just say that actually, when they click on buttons, the screen will buzz. It will vibrate, telling them that they're, through the touch, that they clicked on something, which is perfect for someone who might struggle to see properly. So think like that, have a look through, do some research, and then provide 2 paragraphs talking about those inputs and output requirements.